All right, let's get right into it. This is the big question, isn't it? The one you see everywhere in the headlines, the one that pops up every time you see someone with a vape. Is this thing, this new habit, actually worse than smoking?
And you've got to understand, the stakes here are huge. Get this, right now, one in five high school students in the US vapes, and that number has just about doubled lately. We're talking more kids vaping than smoking old school cigarettes. So, with all these scary headlines flying around, and more people picking up vapes, you have to ask, could vaping actually be the greater evil? Well, that's what we're here to find out. We're going to cut through all the noise, look at the actual science, and see if vaping has really managed to become worse than smoking.
First up, the science of the rush. Because, to really get a handle on the risk, you first have to understand why people do it. And the science is pretty clear. The feeling you get from a vape, well, it just hits different than a cigarette.
Okay, so here's the absolute key difference. When you vape, you're not inhaling smoke from, burning leaves. It's not smoke at all. It's an aerosol. And a good way to picture it is like that stage smoke you see at a concert. It's this superheated vapor that's just a carrier delivering nicotine and all those chemical flavorings right into your lung.
And this delivery system? Man, it's like a nicotine superhighway. It is brutally efficient. The aerosol hits your lungs, that nicotine crosses straight into your bloodstream, and bam, it rockets to your brain in just a few seconds. In fact, studies are showing this whole process is even faster, even more intense than what you get from a cigarette.
And you should not underestimate how powerful that rush is. I mean, listen to this quote from one of our sources. Someone said, "The hardest drug I did this year at Pride was when I hit someone's vape at a rave. I was ripped." That really puts it in perspective, right? The way people use these new vapes, taking these huge, hard puffs, combined with how much nicotine is packed in there, it's a seriously intense drug experience.
All right, so we've established it's powerful. The rush is real. But what's it actually doing to your body? What's the damage? Because it turns out this stuff is way more than just harmless water vapor.
And honestly, some of the dangers are pretty shocking. Check this out. One study, a big one, with 13,000 men, found that guys who vaped every day were 2.2 times more likely to report having erectile dysfunction compared to guys who'd never vaped. Why? Well, nicotine messes with your blood flow, and like we said, vapes deliver a ton of nicotine.
Okay, but let's talk about the thing that really freaked everyone out. What about those vaping deaths that were all over the news a few years back? You remember the stories, right? Young, healthy people ending up in the hospital? This is a really important point that we need to clear up.
So the illness was so specific it got its own name, EVALI. That stands for e-cigarette or vaping use associated lung injury. It was this really serious respiratory illness that hospitalized thousands of people between 2019 and 2020. People were showing up with coughing, wheezing, chest pain, and tragically 68 people died from it. But after a ton of investigation, the scientists and the CDC figured it out. And the scientific consensus was crystal clear. EVALI was not caused by the standard, regulated nicotine vapes you buy in a normal store. The real culprit was a very specific chemical, vitamin E acetate, that was being used as a thickener in illegal black market THC vape cartridges. Big difference. Okay, so that's a relief, right? But hold on. Just because nicotine vapes didn't cause EVALI, that absolutely does not mean they're harmless. Not even close. You see, the original idea for vapes was just to be this boring, tasteless tool to help smokers quit. But then companies added flavors to get more people to buy them. And that's where a whole new world of danger opened up. Because these flavors aren't just flavors, they're a cocktail of chemicals. For instance, cinnamaldehyde, the chemical that makes the cinnamon flavor, it can literally paralyze the tiny little hairs in your lungs that are supposed to clear out all the gunk. The chemical for chocolate flavor can cause inflammation. You're also breathing in stuff like benzene, which is a known carcinogen, and even heavy metals like manganese and zinc that flake off the heating coil itself. Those can cause direct injury to your lung. Okay, so we've got the super fast nicotine hit, we've got the flavor chemicals, we've got the heavy metals. That's vaping. And in the other corner, we have old school cigarettes. It's time for the verdict. Vaping versus smoking. Let's do this. So let's break this showdown down, head to head. Vaping. Its method is heating an aerosol. The key harms are those flavor chemicals and heavy metals we talked about. And the primary danger seems to be things like lung inflammation and raising your risk for COPD. Now, smoking. Its method is straight up combustion, burning tobacco. The key harm there is tar and, get this, over 7,000 other chemicals. Its primary danger? Well, we all know this one. Cancer, COPD, and heart disease. So when you lay it all out like that, when you look at all the evidence we have right now, the scientific consensus is clear. Cigarettes are still worse. And to really grasp the difference in how bad they are, you just have to hear this quote from a lung researcher. They said that smoking a cigarette is like putting your mouth over a car exhaust pipe and inhaling. Just think about that for a second. The sheer level of toxic junk you get from burning a cigarette is, for now, in a completely different league.
But, and this is a huge but, just saying that vaping is not as bad as cigarettes is not the end of the story, not by a long shot. In fact, it might just be the start of a totally new kind of problem, with consequences we're only just starting to wrap our heads around.
When you look at who's using these things, you see two very different stories. Smoking is this massive global problem, right? We're talking 1.3 billion smokers around the world. Vaping, though, it's a different beast. It's a problem that's super concentrated among young people, especially here in the US.
And this right here is the public health nightmare. The real fear isn't just about smokers switching to something a bit safer. The big worry is that the cool tech, the fruity flavors, it's creating a brand new generation of nicotine addicts. We're talking about millions of kids who probably never would have touched a nasty old cigarette in the first place.
So, after all of that, what's the final takeaway? What's the one thing you really need to remember from all this science?
Here it is, the bottom line. Vaping isn't worse than smoking. But, and please hear this part, better than the deadliest consumer product ever made is an incredibly low bar to clear. That is not the same thing as being safe.
And that leaves us with the final, really unsettling question. What we're seeing right now is a massive worldwide experiment, and the main test subjects are kids. We've only seen what happens in the short term. So what are scientists going to discover about the long-term effects of breathing in this chemical cocktail, say, 10, 20, or even 30 years from now? That's the question that we just don't have an answer to.